us as parents really need to be involved in why sport is important. And if it wasn't important for you, understanding the benefits of sport, just like you understand the benefits of education. There's so many lessons you learn, what it takes to be a good team member, what leadership looks like, what discipline looks like, what hard work looks like, all those things you can learn on a sporting field. I've definitely benefited from in playing sports my life and continue to do so today.
Adam Goodes is an AFL legend, co-founder of the Go Foundation, author, advocate, and 2014 Australian of the Year. Welcome to Sportish. I'm Georgie Trickett. This season of Sportish is powered by the Australian Sports Commission, spotlighting Australia's sports participation strategy, playwell. It's all about creating fun and inclusive sporting experiences for all Australians, because everyone has a place in sport. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Sportish. You're known as an AFL icon, but actually you have another first love in your life. Growing up, you played a lot of soccer. What was that like for you as a kid?
Yeah, sport was always something that came naturally to me. I think maybe being the eldest of three boys, always having a ball, cricket bat, soccer balls, weirdly never an AFL ball in our household. And all the schools I went to in South Australia, soccer seemed to be the predominant sport that everyone was playing. So it just became the sport that I played with my friends, right? And my brothers at home, and just grew up absolutely loving playing soccer. And it wasn't until we moved from South Australia in Adelaide to a small country town in Merbeen, just on the outskirts of Mildura, where soccer really wasn't available and I had to try something new. Soccer maintained my passion throughout my career, through my soccer teams that I followed, and I'd always get to training early and ask our sports physios and, the people who are running our warm-ups, can we play soccer as a warm-up today? Like, just to get that fix. And after training, the boys would always play indoor soccer together in our facility. So I could maintain that love, but also playing of the game as well. And yeah, when I retired 10 years ago, like the first thing I wanted to get back into was playing like six-a-side soccer just to get a taste of it again. And that was only for 40 minutes, so 2 20-minute halves. And I was like, well, that's not really scratching the itch that I have. And I literally just went on Facebook and, asked the question, what's my local soccer team? And it came up with Waverley Old Boys, gave me an emailed the team manager. And, I've been playing for the Waverley Old Boys for the last 8 years now. And, I'm 46 and just going through pre-season and into practice matches again for hopefully another season.
I want to go back to that time when you moved from South Australia to Victoria. How important was sport in helping you to connect to new friends and make new connections in these new towns?
Yeah, I was very lucky that wherever we moved, and we did move around quite a lot. I went to 6 different primary schools and a couple of different high schools in our family's journey, and even when I moved to Sydney, I hopped around quite a fair bit as well. So, signing up to the local AFL team in a small country town, the sporting clubs are the heartbeat, and it really was a great cut through for me to be able to sign up to a local team, see all those kids at school, be up, and I've never played the game before, so I always wanted to kick it off the ground, of course. And it's a little bit different shape, so it kept bouncing away from me, not coming directly to me. So that was really challenging. But then also the friends that you started to make, so it made it a lot easier to fit in at school. And, we were the only Indigenous family at our school as well. So that can be quite challenging and daunting, but sport for us as a family was a real leveler, and we were able to cut through and make friends quite easily and in a way get accepted and cut down those sometimes invisible barriers and unconscious bias that comes with us being the Indigenous family in the community.
How much do you think the fact that you played soccer and you mentioned you had cricket bats and all sorts of sporting equipment at home, how much do you think playing different sports actually ended up helping you in your AFL career?
I think just being outdoors and active, sport was something that we did in the community. It wasn't just something we did with my two younger brothers. We'd always have friends over. We'd always play on the street. Whatever ball a kid got at Christmas time, we'd all go around to their house and play. What we didn't get, somebody else might have got. And I think that's just what we did as kids, right? I just think the hours accumulated of us playing, kicking, throwing, chasing, crying, sweating, bleeding, broken arms, the cuts and bruises, that definitely helped. For me as a professional athlete, because up until getting drafted, I'd only been playing the game for 3 or 4 years. So I definitely was not developed from a skill point of view. But I did have, athletic attributes that I still hadn't really uncovered yet from a training point of view or getting the best out of myself. So coming into a elite system, I was always happy to try new things because I just did that growing up as a kid. Different sports, different schools, making new friends, losing new friends. All of those things didn't really bring a lot of fear. There was uncomfortableness with it. And I was super shy as a kid. Like, I was the kid that sat in the back row at school and never asked questions. But when, sports was on, I was always the first to put my hand up, wanted to go first, really wanted to get in there and try my best.
You were raised by a strong single mother. What was her influence with you when it came to sport? What were the lessons that she taught you? And what of those lessons are you going to pass down to your kids?
A lot of the, I think, physical lessons I can't, as a parent, or won't choose to implement into, my parenting from a discipline point of view. My mum ruled with an iron spoon sometimes and a kettle cord sometimes, and discipline was at the heart of that, but it was backed up with a lot more love. And I figure any single parent, and I'm trying to raise 4 with my beautiful wife and a live-in au pair, it's challenging. And to think that my mum was doing it by herself and, the help of the church that we were part of, I think that sense of community is super important. And, I've definitely taken that aspect of parenting and community into the people we invite into our inner circle and the communities that we are part of, the sporting communities, the school community, the parents community. I think it's really important. Because it's very easy to isolate ourselves, and, that's not who we are as human beings. We need connection, we need to build relationships, and we need that support from each other, which I think is really important. And my mum was very open to that wherever we moved to, which I think was really important. One thing that, really sort of sits with me was that my mum was really strict on education. School was the most important thing. My mum was taken away when she was little, when she was 5, put into a white family, taken from her Indigenous family on a mission. And, she got a really good education, and she went on to be a Div 2 nurse, and she saw the benefits of education. But more importantly, I think she saw the importance of the life that she was taught, and education being at the heart of that. And, being able to sit with my 6-year-old daughter and see her read a book to me, and my 4-year-old son starting preschool this year and him wanting to, start to read books himself. And, that really excites me about, from one generation ago with my mum, born on an Aboriginal mission on the outskirts of Wallaroo and Port Lincoln, and then where that mission was at Point Pearce, really shows to me how far we've come in one generation to me, but, even further, hopefully, the next generation with my young children.
You just spoke so beautifully about reading with your daughter. Is that one of the things that inspired you to write your children's book series with Ellie Lang?
Yeah, it was like all of us parents, the books that we read, most of the books are gifted to us. They're books that we have from our own childhood. So when I started reading books to Adelaide when she was, 1, a lot of the books I was reading, there was no influence, no Indigenous influence in those books. There was no one in the books that represented her or her culture or what she was part of. But as a parent, I grew up not knowing about my Aboriginality. School didn't play any part in educating me. Same with Ellie as well. And, we sort of came up with the idea that, well, maybe we should create something. She's the demographic that we wanted the books to be, non-Indigenous, but also wanted the books to be for our Indigenous brothers and sisters like me who didn't grow up engrossed in their culture or know who their mob is. And we wanted to create a whole group of teachers, resources behind it, free of charge from our website so that we could continue that learning. So to be able to, sign a book deal, I never wanted to just sign one and do one book, one and done. I really wanted to create a series where we could just continue to tell stories and help our teachers, our carers, our mothers and fathers, grandparents, as they read to, the young people, that they also are learning as well on that journey.
When you did the research for the book and started pulling out the themes you wanted to cover, did you uncover anything to do with physical activity and movement for Indigenous culture?
Yeah, I think there's a big part of it, especially in ceremony, like the special types of ceremonies we have, and what we do teach in the theory behind the resources that we've built for that is that we all, even today, we have special ceremonies around our birthdays, special ceremonies around Easter time, religious special ceremonies that we would have as well. And I think it's important that we identify them as that's part of who we are in our culture, just like in First Nations culture. Those different types of ceremonies and the types of food we eat at special times of the year are really important, as well as dancing and the sports we would play and the team that you would be in based upon your kinship system and who you'd be playing against. So everything that is teaching you about the culture you're a part of and where you fit in to that culture. And I think that's really important and great to be able to share throughout our books.
In the Goods household, what does sport and physical activity look like?
Yeah, so we're very, well, not strict is the word, but, if it's a school day, there's no TV, which weirdly they're okay with, which is great. We've just gotten Otis and Adelaide into jiu-jitsu. Otis, the 4-year-old, he's just wants to tackle everything. And he's got a 2-year-old younger brother, which is up for tackling. But as soon as you hurt him, he wants to bite you. So I'm like, okay, we need to get you around other people where you can be rough.
Yeah.
He hasn't learned that he can be rough there yet. So he's just finding his way through that. But Adelaide loves it, which is really awesome. So it's good to help them. I've tried soccer with Otis a couple of times. Once when he was 2 and he wasn't really interested, and then again at 4 because he was asking about it, and we went to one session and he just wanted to kick the ball with me. So that's what we do. It doesn't have to be something that we do in a group with other kids. It's something that we can just do. And I am very blessed that I started my own business 10 years ago, and I take Fridays off and have done for the last 2 years to I know how critical this 0 to 5 age is for our young children and the amount of time they get to have with their parents. And I want to be that parent that's there. So, every Friday at the moment I get Otis and Leroy to go do activities with them, sometimes sport related, sometimes not. And it's just about having fun with them and understanding what they want to do. And we're very lucky we've got a swimming pool at home, and Otis has just learned how to swim, and he just wants to jump in the pool every afternoon after school and preschool. And I'm always happy to jump in there with the 3 kids.
And what about for the grown-ups? Because physical activity is so important for all of us, at any life stage. And you've spoken about your soccer, but I understand your wife also plays a lot of hockey.
Yeah, she has, and obviously the mum sacrificed the most in life, and especially with the baking of the children, the feeding of the children post the baking for a year. So that's 2 years of your life gone per child. I think we worked it out the other day. Since my wife was pregnant and breastfeeding over the last 6, nearly 7 years, I think it's only about 18 months where she hasn't been pregnant or breastfeeding. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, that is such a sacrifice.
And it takes an incredible toll on everyone, on your body.
Mentally, physically, and, it's the greatest gift that mums give to our community, that's for sure. And, my children, they've completely benefited from that sacrifice, no doubt about it. And hockey, unfortunately for my wife, Natalie, hasn't been something she's been able to do the last couple of years. I'm real shame that she did go back after having 18 months out, and the first training session, someone whacked her with a stick on her finger and broke her finger, and she had to get a pin put in. So that was super frustrating, but, something that we do at the moment. As my wife has a little bit of separation in her abs from, the commitment of her body to 4 children, doing 4 Pilates sessions a week together after the kids go to bed is challenging. I never thought just doing bodyweight stuff, it could be so challenging after being in the gym for 18 years, but it's really nice to be able to do something at the end of our day that is physical, that is also helping with, repairing my wife's body as well.
Could you ever see yourself being roped into being a kids coach?
I often think about it, and I look at all my friends and they say that no one's keen to put their hands up, and I think I'll always support my kids' choice in what sports they want to play. And, I would really love them to get into soccer, just the development of using both sides of your bodies with kicking. Even though you don't touch the ball with your hands, there still is a lot of eye-hand foot coordination that you utilise, the defensive elements of football. I'm always want to help and support all the kids that are out there. So maybe I'll just pick up the whistle and just ref the game and support from that point of view.
What do you hope for them in terms of the sort of sporting clubs they'll go into and the culture they'll find when they get there?
Yeah, look, I just hope that when they play sport that they just enjoy it. Sport for me was an incredible vehicle. Gave me so much confidence to stay in school. It gave me so much reward for the training that I committed to it. It gave me great access to traveling to different parts of the state, representing my school, representing my teams that I played, and most importantly, physically, I felt good. And that correlation between feeling good physically, helping and supporting me mentally was a massive part of why I was still physically active, now post my career. And while I'll stay physically active until, I cark it for sure, because the body and the physical body needs to be worked, just like our mind needs to be, worked over as well through constant learning and challenges that we face. So for me, I hope that they are part of teams. Team sport's really important for me. I didn't do a lot of individual sports. I love playing golf. I hate the mental side of golf. It really defeats me. I expect to be good at golf, even though I put no training into it, which makes no sense. But for me, that individual sports are just a different challenging, output that I don't think I could ever really get into. I need my teammates. I need my people around me to help me be successful.
Throughout all your sporting journey, you would have had so many mentors and coaches that have had an influence on your life, and that might have been at a club, community level, or right up to the top of your AFL career. What are some of the things you learnt from those mentors?
The biggest thing I learnt from mentors is that, you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to make mistakes over and over and over again. And the biggest thing for me was about learning from those mistakes. And if I'm keeping on making the same mistake, ask myself why. And what can I change to stop myself from making those mistakes? Is it physical? Am I not physically trained to be able to perform that same effort over and over again? So is it a physical or is it a mental issue? And if it is a mental issue, well, what can I do about it to improve that capacity? So for me, I always knew I could get better. I'd only been playing the game for 4 years before I was drafted. So I knew I had to be a sponge and absorb everything that was in front of me. And even, in my last year when I was 35, I still knew I could improve physically and mentally in my performance. And so I was always, when you have that mindset, you're always looking, you're always asking, you're talking to your sports science department on the physiology of, how can I improve? You're talking to your sports psychologist about, my meditation, the keeping me grounded, the way I prepare for games. Is there something that I need to change or look at? Like, I was constantly asking those different questions, around data that was captured from the GPS units. Okay, well, that's my baseline game, or what do I need to do at training to improve my peak performance as a 35-year-old athlete? So always looking at ways to improve, never staying stationary, and never, using age as a barrier or an injury as a barrier, or I'm just a bit tired today as a barrier. Everyone is feeling like that most days. And, I think one thing I learned from other athletes, reading their books, seeing their interviews, is everyone has bad days. Everyone doesn't feel like going to work today. That happens. But the best find a way to fight through that, get through that, realise the why they're still doing it, the outputs that they need to do to keep being successful, and most importantly, there has to be something at the end. What is the goal? What are you working towards? Because if you don't have that goal, then you are just fluffing around. You're not really working towards something. And when it's too hard that day, it's like, I don't really need to go and do that, or I don't need to try 100% today. And I think that was the difference. I always knew what my goals were. I always knew that I had a very limited window to do what I was doing. So I wanted to be the best.
Adam, you've had a long and incredibly successful career, but there obviously would have been a number of challenges along the way for you. What were some of those challenges and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, lots of challenges, some well known in the media, some not. I think the biggest challenge for me was moving away from home as a 17-year-old, the man of the house, the oldest sibling in the house, single parent. That was really challenging to move away from my family. I was ready. But it was also hard to leave my two younger brothers, 15 and 13, back home in a community where, there was still some pretty big decisions that they need to make in their lives without an older brother being around to see. And that was challenging for me over a couple of years, and I really struggled with what was happening back home and not being able to be present and help and support my family in the way I wanted to. And I went into a pretty dark place, and it really affected me, and I needed to get a bit of help for that. And, I wasn't the first person to put my hand up to ask for that help. It was really affecting my football, and, I started talking to someone within the club, and the biggest thing for me was understanding that I chose to be where I was. I wasn't choosing not to be with my family, that I was doing something for me, and that was okay. And I think that's a really important lesson that, I've learned, is that I have to selfishly worry about myself for me to be the best for, my network and people around me. And at one point, my football career, I needed to go on a mental health plan, and what that helped me focus on was the importance of talking to people. But more importantly for me, the relationships were important to me, and giving enough time to those relationships so I felt grounded and balanced. And part of that plan, which, really helps me every day, that, I continue to live the life that I'm choosing, is that sleep, health, and exercise are the three most important things when you talk about your mental health plan. And getting enough sleep, super important, eating the right things. And when I say eating the right things, I'm an 80-20s person. Like 80% of the time, good, 20%, eat whatever you want. Like, we're here for a short amount of time. I was a professional athlete living that, and I continue to still live that. I love chocolate. Anyone who knows me, who watches this or hears this, they know how much I love sugar. But I also sacrifice, it at certain times so that, I don't go too crazy with it as well. And I don't want my kids seeing how much I love sugar, but everyone asks them, so what's your dad love the most? And I always like, chocolate. I was like, yeah, that's true. But for me, it's also understanding the things that you like and sacrificing when you need to. And then also the physical element, if you can do at least 30 minutes of exercise every day just for you. And if you can't do 30 minutes, like do 10 minutes of your day, like 10 minutes. You deserve more than 10 minutes. But if you can't get any more, like 10 minutes a day of just you doing something that's just for you. You're not doing it for the kids. You're not doing it for work. You're doing it because that time is just for you and you value that time is just for you. And that's important that you block that out every day in your week because you have to put yourself first. It's important. And for you to be the absolute best that you want to be as a parent, as a mother, as a father, as a colleague, as a business owner, as a leader, you have to at some stage identify that you are important. Actually, you are the most important because it's your life, it's your lens, what you're doing. And what I learned early on in my career, that if I gave too much of myself here, and here, I didn't leave much for myself. So it was really important for me and a real big lesson that I learned early on in my career. And that really helped me. Once I knew the right people I wanted to talk to, the hats that I was wearing, the time that I needed to allocate to service those, and that I needed to put myself first, that's when I started to thrive. And that's no doubt why I've had such a long career and we're able to get the absolute best out of my mind and my physical self throughout that period of time.
And it's one of those things where it can sometimes be a struggle to even find those 10 minutes, but you get into it and you never regret it. You always walk away from a session like that feeling 10 times better than when you started. And often it's just the starting. And once you get there, all of a sudden, I can do 20 minutes. Oh, now I've got 30 minutes. And it builds, that momentum builds. It's such an important message.
And it is. And like those days when you've just had a day, we all, at the end of the day, go to bed. And one thing that's changed my life completely is meditation. So being able to get to bed and I look at the clock, it's like 11 o'clock. I'm like, I haven't done anything for me today. You know what? I'm just going to meditate and I don't set a timer on it. I just give that time for myself and whatever time I get, it's a blessing. And I finish it and I've looked down and it's like, wow, that's 20 minutes I gave myself today. I feel so much better and I'm ready to go to sleep. And I go to sleep with a clear mind knowing that I still got that time in for me today.
You set up the Go Foundation and through that foundation you've awarded over 1,700 scholarships to Indigenous kids to help them and support them through school. And school is obviously another really amazing way for kids to connect with sport. How do you think we get more kids involved in sport in that Australian schooling system?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Since COVID, it's really, especially I'm a country kid, especially regionally, even worse remotely, the participation in team sports has really dropped off. And it's dropped off for a couple of reasons. Our volunteers, our adults, our parents, our community members have dropped off in their participation in local clubs, which means that there's not enough people to coach the boys and girls teams. There's not enough volunteers for the tuck shop. There's not enough volunteers to set up the grounds. So all that plays a massive impact. And then if we have, parents not supporting and sometimes challenging our young kids to get outside and play sports, then we really are, losing the special magic that happens from kids participating in sports and being active. So for me, I don't know the direct answer on how to get more kids involved. I think schools do their absolute best to get participation at schools, but it's hard when the kid rocks up and, sorry, I don't have my runners today, or sorry, I didn't bring my training gear. What can you do? And I think us as parents really need to be involved in, why sport is important. And if it wasn't important for you growing up, understanding the benefits of sport, just like you understand the benefits of education, playing sport and being a team member, if you want your, child in life to participate in business, in further education, you have to learn about what it takes to be a good team member. And there's so many lessons you learn from sport, myself included, about what it takes to be a good team member, what leadership looks like, what discipline looks like, what hard work looks like. All those things you can learn on a sporting field. And, I just think it's a special magic sauce that, I've definitely benefited from in playing sports my life and continue to do so today.
We spoke a lot at the start about your love for soccer, but I'd also like to just talk a little bit about your affinity with water and ocean swimming particularly. How did you discover ocean swimming, and is it still something you do today?
Yeah, so when somebody tells you can't do something, because of an injury, and I had multiple knee injuries, I was like, okay, well, I can't run, I can't jump on a bike. Well, what can I do? Okay, I can swim. So I was like, well, I'm just going to use swimming as how I can keep my cardio and work on my strength. And okay, if I'm going to do swimming, well, what's the goal? There has to be something I'm working towards. And Lewis Roberts-Thompson and I, at the Swans, were both injured at the same time, and his family were really great ocean swimmers, and they'd done lots of ocean swimming events. And he said, Goodsy, in the off season, there's a 2.2k swim from Bondi to Bronte. And I was like, ooh, that's punchy. And it's out past the head. I was like, okay, well, let's have a crack. That's the goal. Let's work towards that. And so our training would be in a pool, in the ocean pool. We did a couple of point-to-points in Bondi. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit more confident. And, I did that first swim. It took me, close to 50 minutes. And I finished it and I felt this incredible sense of accomplishment. I did it with a buoy between my legs because my knees weren't 100% yet. And that just started a love of something that I've never done before. And that was, ocean swimming. And I ended up doing that ocean swim 3 or 4 times now and recruited other people into it. And it was just something that we did for fun. And I got a lot of fun out of it. I wasn't doing it for training anymore. And having a pool at home now and being able to do swimming and teach that to my children, I just think it's another skill that we can teach each other that you can do for your whole life.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Sportish today.
Pleasure.
This series of Sportish is powered by the Australian Sports Commission's Play Well strategy. Play Well is about creating fun and inclusive sporting experiences for all Australians because everyone has a place in sport. You can find out more about the Play Well strategy at ausport.gov.au/playwell. This series is produced by Deadset Studios and hosted by us, Georgie and Libby Trickett.
Sportish and the Australian Sports Commission acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was made.
We recognise the outstanding contribution that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples make to sport and celebrate the power of sport to tell stories and promote reconciliation.